For today's presentation I will talk about the airline industry analysis. An airline is that provides air transport services for traveling passengers and freight. Traveling by air is a hobby of many people, and it was a normal thing before 2019. However, at the end of 2019, COVID-19 began to break out globally, and it has continued until 2020. People are still fighting the virus. Because most countries have begun to implement air control or entry restriction policies, such as India and the United States, the daily number of new cases is still between 50,000 and 100,000, so the airline industry is still in a state of suspension. The business article I chose is "These are the 6 major problems facing the airline industry." This article discusses the changes and ideas that COVID-19 has brought to the aviation industry. First, the number of tourists has dropped sharply. As of March 24, 2020, the number of people who passed the security check was only 253,807, which was only 9.7% of the number of people who passed the security check on the same day a year ago. The number and percentage of customs clearance were only 4% of the same period last year. This is a very low data, indicating that the airline is almost in a state of suspension. Second, airlines will significantly reduce the number of employees. Due to the sharp decrease in customer demand, airlines have greatly reduced their employees or their salaries to reduce costs. For example, the U.S. CARES Act provides airlines with $25 billion in grants to pay their employees before September 30, and then lay off a large number of employees. Third, airlines are still trying to find new rules. In order to suppress the spread of the virus, social isolation and protection are needed, such as the spacing between aircraft seats, measuring the temperature of passengers and wearing masks. For example, all passengers and employees at Pittsburgh International Airport must wear masks at all times. Fourth, cargo is becoming more and more important to passenger airlines. In the cargo business of Delta Airlines and United Airlines, cargo revenue was less than 2% of revenue in the first quarter. Delta Airlines is performing many cargo tasks and transferring cargo, transporting medical supplies out of China and cooperating with cargo companies. Fifth, Boeing and Airbus are not so powerful. Due to the surplus of aircraft, Boeing and Airbus have reduced their huge impact on the aviation industry. After the aviation pandemic, the cost of aircraft will decrease. Sixth, the dream of long-distance travel has been revoked. The COVID-19 pandemic continues, and countries have not cancelled air traffic control, let alone return to the previous state this year. Therefore, the short-term and long-term plans of some companies are both must be cancelled. No action can be taken, because the current pandemic is still unpredictable. For the industry analysis, I found some data on the U.S. aviation industry, which contains the changes and impacts of COVID-19 in the aviation industry. From this picture, we can see the increase in the number of infections in many countries. India's increase in the number of people on September 14 has exceeded 90,000, which is the country with the largest increase in the number of infections, and the United States has reached 40,000 people. So because the number of infections continues to grow, the global pandemic is still very severe. According to the statistics of Wells Fargo Securities, the world economy is expected to shrink by nearly 4% in 2020, and most countries will experience severe economic recession in the first half of this year. We look forward to a strong rebound in global GDP in the second half of this year. However, for most countries or regions said that recovery may take the end of 2021, or it is not even until the end of 2022 that the actual GDP can return to the level before the virus outbreak. For American Airlines, passenger traffic remained below 65% of the same period last year. The week ending September 13, domestic air travel dropped by 63% and international airlines dropped by 84%. Not only American Airlines but also airlines around the world are suffering a huge impact. Due to the continuous development of COVID-19, global international air services down by more than 80%. Future air travel ticket sales at U.S. airports are still under pressure. Net booking revenue decreased by 83% compared to 2019, mainly due to the evaporation of business travel, but also due to the pandemic. Air traffic control started by various countries, including now, China flying to Thailand, still has to go through cumbersome procedures to obtain certification certificate of entry, and the flights are also designated by the embassy. There are only 3 flights throughout September. The remaining flights purchased by yourself are invalid. Therefore, no one will plan their own travel and buy air tickets in the current state of the countries still blocked. 29% of the U.S. passenger fleet remains idle. It peaked in mid-May. Because in May was the outbreak of COVID-19 in the United States, aviation was almost shut down, and the trough appeared in mid-August. Because the United States began to take certain prevention and control measures, air transportation was slowly opened. For the trend, the global aviation industry is related to the manufacturing and operation of various types of aircraft and related services in the transportation process. The key factors affecting the aviation industry after the pandemic include the reduction in the number of trips, because many international and domestic flights have been cancelled worldwide to contain the virus spread. Global governments are cancelling foreign visas and locking down the affected areas, and the air passenger transport sector will be the most affected along with catering and other service providers. In the near future, the cancellation of orders by airlines may also be affected. Aircraft manufacturing companies, Italy, France, Spain, and India have been completely locked up, and all flights will be suspended until further notice. In order to reduce costs, all airline companies have begun to reduce the scale of their operations, including reducing the number of flights and reducing less economical aircraft. In conclusion, air travel brings great convenience to people, especially business people and international students. The catastrophic impact of COVID-19 on the aviation industry is visible to the naked eye. Similarly, as an international student, under the current circumstances, due to air traffic control, I have experienced a series of difficulties, such as handling materials for returning to Thailand, quarantining hotels, and booking flights, etc. So I hope that in the future, everything can be restored as usual, and I hope that both the aviation industry and other industries can be restored.